Well, joining us this morning is former Deputy Governor of the Bangko Sentral and current Principal Advisor of Global Source Partners, Diwa Guinigundo. It's good having you back, DG Diwa. Welcome to the program.
All right, thank you very much, Kathy, for having me here again.
All right. Well, Cabinet Secretaries held that economic briefing last Friday. From a former central banker's lens, did that event do enough to change the narrative in the markets, or was it more optics than substance?
Well, I think it's an excellent response to what is happening today. Recall that last week, what we saw was a big dip in foreign direct investment in October. That's about 40% drop. And at least there are three reasons why the FDI actually declined. We have weakening macroeconomic fundamentals. This is about the growth prospects becoming dimmer. The fiscal situation is not encouraging because revenue continues to lag behind expenditure, and external payments situation is also precarious. And that's one of the reasons why the peso has been weakening in recent period. Second, of course, is global shocks. Not only the increasingly protectionist stance of the U.S. in terms of higher tariffs and very strict immigration policy, but also the possible increased and prolonged pause on the part of the U.S. Fed. And again, that is a challenge to the BSP. And finally, negative market sentiment. And again, this is all about corruption and governance. I said it's an excellent response to the seeming erosion in public and business trust and confidence in the Philippine economy. So I think we should commend our economic managers for initiating this dialogue with our business, with our business partners. And there are two objectives to this, Kathy.
Could we just take it from excellent response and dive deep into what the economic team is highlighting? There are four concrete moves. First one is restoring the CARS program, and then the 14-day visa-free entry for Chinese visitors, a digitized BIR audit system, and a single window customs platform to cut the red tape. In your view, which of these can actually move the needle, especially due to your concerns of falling and crashing FDI on investor confidence in, say, the next 12 months? And which do you think are more signaling than game-changing?
I think all of this can move the needle, but just a little bit. Because the problem is about governance, it is about corruption, and that is behind the drop in FDI as well as in terms of domestic investment. Remember that in the third quarter report, the GDP actually slowed down to 4%. One of the reasons, of course, is that private as well as public investment had really slowed down. And the reason, of course, is the chilling effect of what we are seeing today, what we are witnessing today in terms of the investigation behind this flood control project. Okay, so in other words, the issue is not just about ease of doing business, ensuring that policies are in place to avoid corruption. Because who will implement those, let's say, game-changing and needle-moving initiatives unless the issue of corruption is addressed head-on and the culture of impunity is also addressed by the government, no less than the ombudsman and the civil courts? I don't think the needle will move significantly, Kathy.
Well, what do you make of the local currencies movements of late? They've hit record lows last week in as many days. It's slightly opened stronger today, but what do you make of that plumbing to record lows?
Well, number one, I was saying earlier that the prospect for economic growth is not very strong. It is weakening. Second, of course, is that the external payment situation is also quite precarious. First 9 months, current accounts stood at about 12.5 billion. And despite OFW remittances and BPO receipts, the overall balance of payments came up to about 4.8 billion. This is the fundamental reason why the peso is weakening recently. At the same time, negative market sentiment is driving further the erosion of business trust and confidence. And finally, I also said about the possible prolonged pause in the U.S. Fed. Now, the BSP continues to sound dovish, at least for the first few meetings of the Monetary Board. And that could also send a signal to the foreign exchange market. And when the differential between domestic and the foreign interest rates start widening again or narrowing relative to the U.S., then a weakening peso is to be expected, Kathy.
So given all those event risks here and overseas, what kinds of conversations are you generating amongst your clients, global source partners, and within your circles?
They were saying, how long will this continue? In other words, this cloud of uncertainty, the issue about governance and corruption. In other words, they have been waiting for the resolution of all of these cases involving the flood control scandal. And if this is something that is disposed immediately or expeditiously by the government, I think that is a game-changing development.
Well, the palace says it's a strong dollar story. Is it?
Well, it's a strong dollar story in one sense, yes, but it is also an issue of how weak or how strong are the domestic economies, for example, in Indonesia, in Malaysia, and in other parts of the Southeast Asian region. In other words, even if the dollar is strong, if the domestic factors could also provide some impact or some cushion to it, we will not be seeing the significant weakening of the peso today.
All right, well, given the peso's record weakness now, how close do you think we are to where governance-linked FDI weakness is visibly feeding into the currency stress?
It is something that is market-driven, Kathy. It is not a cut and dried number that at 59 or at 60, this is the a golden situation as far as the peso is concerned. It will all depend on many factors. For example, inflation differential, capital flows. So there is not a single factor that will tell you that hey, we have reached a good situation where the peso is now competitive. If we simply look at the real effective exchange rate of the peso, we are more competitive compared to, let's say, the previous year, precisely because the peso has depreciated quite significantly, and of course the issue of inflation.
Okay, well, you write in that same column.
Yes.
If I could just carry on with the column where you wrote, every peso lost to graft is a peso stolen from classrooms, labs, digital infrastructure, and public health. If you look at today's dollar peso levels, how much of the 59 plus to the dollar in your mind is the price of years in underinvestment in people and infrastructure?
Very difficult to say, Kathy, but the telltale signs are quite clear. Over, let's say, in the period of 10, 15 years, our senior high school students had fallen behind their counterparts in terms of their proficiency in reading, in science, and in mathematics. Their creative thinking has also lagged behind our counterparts here in Southeast Asia. That's one. Second is, even in terms of our proficiency in English, remember that one of the strong points about the Filipino labor force is our proficiency in English. But that is past becoming, not true anymore, in the sense that other countries have caught up, and our proficiency has actually deteriorated over the years. Okay, So this is something that we can say has been manifested in terms of our not only economic performance but the performance of our future labor force. If this is the kind of proficiency in science, technology, English, and math, what kind of labor force are we looking at? What kind of leadership are we looking at 10, 15 years from now?
Well, having been a regular participant in the Monetary Board deliberations yourself during your years at the Bangko Sentral, how do you think the Monetary Board now should act, given the peso's recent drop to fresh lows?
Well, based on the pronouncement of the BSP, I don't think they will do something that is drastic to reverse the trend of the peso. I think they will continue to participate in the foreign exchange market only to address the so-called sharp volatilities in the foreign exchange market. But of course, they must have been intervening in the foreign exchange market, and one can see that in terms of our gross international reserves, it has barely moved over the last 2 or 3 months, despite the inflow of dollars and capital.
Are you finding any reason that there might be a major intervention happening down the line?
Well, if nothing happens as far as governance and corruption is concerned, probably the peso can swing significantly or violently to the other side. If those big, bold reforms do not produce the kind of fruits, the kind of results that people are expecting in terms of, restoring public confidence and nurturing partnership with business, then we are looking at a more significant swing of the peso.
What's that significant swing then? Could you put a number to that?
Well, the usual number of 60 pesos to a dollar. In other words, the peso becoming a senior citizen.
Exactly, and we're not talking about each other, are we? All right, thank you so much. Deputy Governor Diwa Guinigundo, a former Bangko Sentral official there and of Global Source Partners. Thank you so much for joining us.